Hello everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS English. I welcome you all on this platform and this is me. My name is Bhavar Singh Surai. I am ex-NDA 115th course and also I had qualified the civil services in 2012. This is all about me that you are seeing in front of your screen, and I am very delighted that I would be a part of your journey while preparing for the civil services. I'll be guiding you throughout in your journey and will be explaining and also be a guide towards your complete steps towards the realization of the dream that you have in your mind. So that would be all that I would be there with you and throughout your journey for clearing the civil services examination. Along with being ex-NDA 115th course and qualifying the civil services in 2012, I also have qualified for technical entry scheme 10+2 and secured All India rank 7th. And I had been teaching the students for the civil services since 2013 itself. And I have a very prolonged journey being a teacher and a mentor for the civil services aspirants. Hi, Randy. All right. So if you have any doubts, if you have any kind of things that you want to ask from me throughout my esteemed journey, I would be very happy to guide you through for any kind of doubts that you have. So you can ask your doubts. And also one more thing that the announcement that I have to make is that I would be taking your the Hindu analysis every day at 9:30 a.m. All right, so we'll be starting off with the Hindu analysis. Tomorrow's session is very important if you are preparing for the civil services, because before starting off with the Hindu analysis, I'll be telling you about what all you need to study, and also I'll be telling about, I'll be talking about what all things that we have to keep in mind while we are doing a complete analysis of the Hindu. So it is very important that when it comes to the Hindu, it is a very important newspaper while we are preparing for the civil services, because when it comes to the Hindu, the news that are there, they are very important, and it is very important for us to interlink those different news to our GS syllabus. And we all know that now the UPSC is more inclined towards the current affairs. UPSC is more inclined towards, linking the current affairs towards your static portion and how you can conquer that. That is very, very important. What are the most common mistakes you have seen students making in prelims? The most repeated mistakes. Very good question that you have asked over here, Dr. Viz. Now, when it comes to prelims, all right, the most common mistake that I have seen students which make while preparing for the prelims examination is that they do not touch the PYQs. The previous asked questions or previous year questions, they are very important. I'll be talking about the students who are just starting their journey. All right, I'll be talking about them also. But most important and most common mistake that most of the students they do is that they appear for lots of the mock test. They appear for, hundreds of mock tests, but they do not go through the PYQs. Now, PYQs are very important because through the PYQs, we understand what kind of thinking UPSC has or the trend that UPSC is setting for the upcoming examination. So it is very important to go through the PYQs religiously. When I have spoken to the selected students, the selected candidates of the UPSC, I have noticed this thing that, they have, I have spoken to a student who qualified the civil services in his 4th attempt. And I have spoken to the students who have qualified the civil services in their 12th attempt. So not 12th attempt, 5th attempt. All right. So ultimately, those students who are qualifying in 4th attempt and 5th attempt, when I have spoken to them, they have said that previously they neglected PYQs while preparing for the prelims. But when they have qualified for the prelims, it is the PYQs that has helped themselves. Is this classes will be helpful for PCS exam? Yes, well, yes, of course. These classes will be helpful for the civil services examination, be it UPSC or PCS as well. Because in PCS also, if we are talking about, UP PCS or we are talking about Rajasthan PCS. So in the PCS examination, they imitate the UPSC itself. So whatever the changes comes in the UPSC, all the state PCS also, they start bringing those changes. So of course, we know that UPSC is now focusing on the current affairs, the linkage of the current affairs with the static portion. And that is the same thing that you are going to see in the PCS exam as well. Yes, PCS is more of static. So when you are preparing for the there is a kind of difference when it comes to both the examination for UPSC and for the PCS as well. So I am coming to that. I'll tell you what is very important. When you are starting off with the preparation, these are certain things that you have to keep in mind while you are preparing for any of the examination, be it UPSC or be it PCS. You have to understand the nature of the examination. Now, when it comes to UPSC does not ask for lot of information. All right, UPSC asks that if you are thinking clearly, that is the main jinx or main crux when it comes to UPSC. All right, UPSC want you to think. UPSC want you to analyze things in a broader framework. But at the same time, when it comes to PCS is more about factual nature. All right, so that is what you have to keep in mind when you are preparing for the PCS examination. All right, and then the next important thing is that you have to start with the right kind of foundation. All right, when I'm talking about foundation are the basics, they are the concepts, and the right foundation can be built up with the proper concepts, and the concepts are they are there in the NCERTs. So it is very important that you go through NCERTs clearly, you build up your concepts, especially for the subjects like geography. When it comes to geography, the concepts, they matter. If you will be seeing the previous year questions of UPSC, you must analyze that it is the concept that the UPSC is focused upon, not over the facts. But at the same time, like you have asked Aitun, that for the PCS, you have to focus more on the facts itself. All right, then the next thing, very important thing is that you have to limit your sources and resources as well. When it comes to sources and resources, in the age of information, we have plethora of information. We have plethora of resources available at the right, at the fingertips. All right. So at that point of duration, what happens is that when we are overloaded with lots of sources and resources, we get jumbled. And ultimately, that is what is required right now, is that you have to trust only limited sources and resources as well. What is the right approach of reading a newspaper? How to make proper notes while reading newspapers? How students take 4-5 years for reading newspapers, still unable to understand? Very good question that you have asked, Dr. Viz. See, when it comes to newspaper reading, the right way to go through a newspaper is that you have to just devote 45 minutes to 60 minutes while going through a newspaper. All right, you do not have to spend 4 to 5 hours while preparing or while reading the newspaper. Now, what happens is, or what is the major problem or major drawback with the students while reading the newspaper is, I'll give you an example. The example is that there is a news that there had been a shooting in Uganda. Now, what the students, they do is, they go to the Google, they start Googling about Uganda, they go through various Wikipedia pages that detail about Uganda. That is not required. That is not what UPSC is asking. But a very serious aspirant, what he will do, he or she will go to the Google and they will just Google Uganda. They will see the map which all borders it is touching, or which lake is there, what is the capital of Uganda, and that is okay. All right, that is done. So ultimately, you have to understand that you have to, while you are going through the newspaper, you have to have two things in your mind. The first and the foremost important thing is that will UPSC will ask the question about it, all right, or whether it aligns with your GS paper or not. Whatever the heading that you are going through, if that aligns with your GS syllabus, that aligns with the GS syllabus, GS module that you have, whether it is GS1, GS2, GS3 or GS4, then that news is important. All right. The second important thing is that you have to understand, I told you about PYQs. If you have been through PYQs, you will be able to filter the news that what UPSC is asking right now. So that is why I told you that PYQs are very important, and it is one of the most common mistake that we do while preparing for the civil services. So that is how you have to understand that newspaper reading is the first important thing, is that you have to filter out the news which are important for your UPSC, and then you have to prepare for it. All right, so that is what I was telling you in the fourth way or the fourth step, that is the newspaper reading is an art. All right, you have to develop that art, and I'll be telling about this art in my next session. Tomorrow at 9:30, I'll be available. I'll be there in front of you, and I will, before discussing tomorrow's paper, before discussing tomorrow's The Hindu, I'll be telling you what all you need to do while preparing for your civil services and while you are reading the Hindu or any newspaper that you are reading it. Arth Sharma, hello and very good evening to you too. Alright, the next important thing is that while you are preparing for the civil services, one more common mistake that we do is that we do not start answer writing early. Alright, we just move towards writing the answers towards the end of it. Especially I'm telling about those students who are from engineering background. Alright, while being in the engineering background, they have very slow speed while they are writing the answers. So you have to develop the habit of answer writing daily, and for this I'm not asking you to do like 5 or 10 answers writing daily. Just do one short answer daily and that is enough. Alright, 9:30 a.m. The session will be on the regular timings. Alright, the regular timings that we were conducting the sessions on StudyIQ IAS English channel, and that is at 9:30 a.m. I will be there in front of you right from tomorrow. Hello, how many answers should be written each daily? So I said that you have to start with at least one answer writing daily. Alright, at least one. You have to develop more than writing the answers. See, that is what I am telling you, that the most important thing is the nature of the examination. You have to develop the thinking. You have to develop the aptitude. I always tell my students, all right, that while you are preparing for any examination, if you want to be an army officer, start believing you are an army officer. And the day you start believing you are an army officer, there are the changes in your personality that comes. That change relates to your nature of walking, the nature that you are talking to someone, the nature you are explaining anything, the nature you interact with anyone. Everything starts, your complete philosophy and your complete mindset shifts towards it. The same thing is required when you are preparing for the civil services as well. The day you want to get into the civil services, remember, it is just your mindset. Start believing you are a civil aspirant. Whenever you are reading something, whenever you are going through anything, just think of it like a civil aspirant, like a civil servant, not an aspirant. Alright, that is what is required. How to develop opinions on different news? Again, very important thing is that you have to develop the horizon. Alright, I always say develop the horizon. Whenever you are seeing any news, think of it in different perspectives. Alright, you are going through a news, think about it, what it can have implication on social aspects, what it can have implication on economic aspect, what it can have implications on the science and technology. And when you are thinking about different perspectives just by going through a news, that is how you develop the opinions. And another thing is that newspaper helps you in developing opinions. When you go through the editorial, when you go through the op-ed, that is opinion page, so over there you find different opinions and you can combine them in your answer writing. I want to prepare civil service examination from 1 year of my college. Any guidance, sir? Art, the most important thing is it is very, you are taking a very right step in the right direction, and right start, right from the beginning is required. My guidance would be that you focus on building your foundation first. We have foundation batches. You can enroll into the foundation batches, gather the information, gather the knowledge and develop your concepts. That is what is required right now, Arth. That is that when you develop a foundation, when you have a complete knowledge of different subjects, so ultimately what happens is your thinking, it gets developed. All right. My attempt is of 2028 with 9 to 5 duty in casualty, facing a bit tough time to align and create a schedule based on consistency, answer writing, reading newspaper, covering GS, facing issues. Alright, Dr. Viz, over here I would like to tell you, and this message is for all the people, all the students, all the aspirants who are in a working job and they are, working for 9 to 5 or 10 to 6. What you can do is, alright, what you need to do is that you need to find the time. Alright, now how you will find the time? You have to, crunch your sleep time. All right. Another important thing is out of 24 hours, you have to gain 25 hours. That is, you have to see where you are wasting your time. We all waste our time. All right, while commuting, we are wasting the time. We are not doing anything. We are just sitting in metro, or we are just sitting in train, or we are just traveling by bus, and ultimately we are wasting that time. All right, we are not doing any productive work over there. So wherever you are not doing any productive work, just write it down and utilize that time. And by utilizing that time, that converts your 24 hours into 25 hours. That is very, very important. Another important thing is that you need to understand over here is that with 9 to 5 duty and 9 to 5, your work schedule, what you need to do is you need to utilize your weekends. You need to utilize your holidays. That is the time duration where you have to work extra. That is what is required, Dr. Viz. You can develop opinions by checking the positive and negative aspects and discussing with friends and families. Yes, of course, Arth. That is one way of moving ahead, and that was one of my own. I will tell you, that was one of my own technique. What I used to do was that I used to sit in a friend circle, and whatever I needed to gain, like for example, I have one side of the opinion that I have. So I would, generally put a negative approach in front of my friends so that I get their opinion in the opposite module. So ultimately, that is one of the approach that you can use while sitting with your friends and family and discussing various issues which are there in the society. All right. As much as you talk the topic with different people, the many opinions you get, yes. And ultimately, when we are talking about different people, it should be of the mixed, generics. Like for example, I used to talk with my rickshaw wala bhaiya as well. All right. So you get to know the knowledge, you get to know the opinion of the various people when you are, you are mixing lots of people into your circle. So that is also what is required. All right. So anything else that you want to ask, you can ask me right now. All right. And I'll be there. Again, I'm telling you, I'll be there in front of you every day from 9:30 a.m. and we will be discussing the Hindu analysis, complete analysis. We'll be talking about the important news and how you can link those news with your GS paper and align them with it. All right, so that is what we'll be doing. And please, if there is any other problem or any other solution to the question that you want me to answer, you can ask me that. Otherwise, we will end up this session and we will meet tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. sharp. All right, anything else that you want to ask? All right, so I wish you all the best, Dr. Viz, Arth, and the others, Shelly, who have joined me over here on the live. And if you're watching this in the recorded session, which engineering will be good for this exam? See, I will suggest that any of the stream, whether it is engineering, whether it is medicals, whether it is BA or BSc, whatever you are doing, it is the clear mindset, the right kind of thinking that you need to develop. And if you are able to develop that mindset and the clear thinking, then you can clear this exam. I will tell you very seriously, when I started for preparing for the civil services, even I was in the same jinx. All right. I met lots of people who said, oh my God, civil services, you are preparing for UPSC examination. That is one of the toughest exam. Then I thought, why this is a tough exam? Because we do not understand the dynamics. We do not understand what this exam actually wants or need. And that is the reason that I qualified my prelims in my first attempt. I appeared for the mains in my first attempt. And in my second attempt, I qualified prelims, mains. I appeared for the interview and my medical was not conducted. All right, it is still, matter that is sub judice, and I will tell you about it at a later stage. Do not worry. All right, so just want a super unbiased opinion on online classes or offline one. An year of dedicated classroom course can bring some decent changes in prep and attempt of exam. So Dr. will see it when it comes to the online platforms. So online platforms give you the flexibility. All right. Like for example, you are in a job and that job is from 9 to 5. And if you will be going for the offline center or offline coaching, you will not find the recorded sessions. All right. So ultimately what happens is when you are you are preparing for online sessions. So if you are unhealthy or you are ill because of any reason, you have missed your classroom. So you can see the recorded session and you do not miss a single thing or single topic. for your preparation. But the same, flexibility is not there with the offline sessions. So therefore, I will suggest you that online are much better for preparation as compared to offline, because they give you a flexibility and you can learn with that flexibility. And ultimately, if you are working professional, if you are there going for the college and you are pursuing further studies, so ultimately the online platforms gives you a better advantage. All right. Sir, is medical very important? Yes, of course, medicals are important. All right. So that would be all. I will meet you all at 9:30 sharp tomorrow, and we'll be discussing the Hindu. But before discussing the Hindu, I will be telling you how to approach the newspaper. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind. Thank you very much. Because my specs number is high. Specs do not matter. All right. It is all about, physical disability. If you have any kind of physical disability, then the medicals are really important. All right. Because with the physical disability, you won't be able to join the armed forces. Like, for example, you won't be able to, or you won't qualify for the IPS. So that is why medicals are important. All right. So that would be all. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me over here on the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Jai Hind. I wish you all the best, and we will meet tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.